This is the iPhone 14 Pro, and I got the space black because they don't have space gray anymore. It looks very similar. Seems like the camera bump is a tad bigger and it's actually darker. So here's the 13 Pro and this is the 14 Pro. The overall color is pretty much the same. It's like there's no difference here. Although if you take a look on the side, the 13 Pro is more like silver color and the 14 Pro is like black all around. This is the same type of material. I got fingerprints all over the 14 Pro already. I'll get used to it like I did with the 13 Pro, but still not a big fan of this. If you look at the side of both phone, the camera bump it's so much bigger. Like I feel like the 13 Pro was a lot bigger compared to the 12 already, and this is way bigger again. However, I do like the black color all around on the 14 Pro. It looks very nice. Let's take a look at inside the box. You have the Design by Apple in California sticker and some manual stuffs as usual. After all this year, we're still using lightning cable. Yep. Even the iPad Pro now has USB-C. Not really sure why the iPhone still doesn't use USB-C. I really hope they change this someday so I have one less cable to bring around. Or maybe the next time they update will be like, okay, no more ports at all. Like, just take off the lightning port altogether and just use MagSafe. That could be their moves too. Sounds like an Apple move to me. Oh yes. Look at this, so clean. And right away you'll see the dynamic island. What a name. And under bright light, you can see the camera cutout and the dynamic island actually looks kind of like a USB-C port. That's ironic. As you see, there's not much design change on the iPhone 14 Pro. Mostly it's just refinements on the internal specs. All three of the cameras on the iPhone 14 Pro is supposed to do better in low light. And there's action mode to give you gimbal-like stabilization. But from the Apple event, it looks very cropped in, so we'll have to see. But to me, the most interesting part is the 48 megapixel on the main camera. And this year, they made it 24mm. As well as there's a 2x zoom, which gives it about like 48mm. And that is very close to 50, which is a very popular focal length for either photos or videos. We also get 2000 nits on the screen of this year's iPhone 14 Pro, so you can see better on your screen under bright sunlight. There's also crash detection that'll automatically contact the emergency services, which I hope nobody ever has to use. There's something on the iPhone 13 Pro that I never really got it to work, which is the back button over here. You know how you can tap twice or 3 times to activate the app or function that you wanted to activate. Theoretically, that's supposed to work flawlessly, but for me, however, the tap doesn't really always work, and I've tried multiple times and on multiple locations on the back of the iPhone. It somehow just doesn't work all the time. But from other people's review, it seems like everyone's back button it's pretty accurate. So I'm guessing it's just like a little defect that I have with my 13 Pro. So hopefully I don't have that problem anymore with the 14 Pro. The most noticeable design change is the dynamic island. So instead of the notch you have on the 13 Pro or previous iPhone, we now get this pill cutout up front. And it's called the dynamic island. It's a very clever design that utilizes the hardware limitation on the iPhone and turns it into something functional and separates itself from the previous generation. But that also raises the questions, because there's so much work put into the dynamic island. Does that mean that we won't see a full screen iPhone in the very near future? Since it's being turned into a function that we can see notifications and interact with it. And by the way, this is also exactly why I picked the iPhone 14 Pro instead of the Max, because I want to be able to reach the dynamic island, if you know what I mean. Like with the Max, I'll have to move my hand all the way up and touch the island. But with the Pro, I can simply just kind of like reach a little bit. Even with the Pro, I have to like move my hand, or we need to practice with it. However, the notification on the dynamic island looks very smooth. It was a really hard decision to make because I really wanted the bigger real estate of the screen so I can play mobile games on my phone. But if I really want to utilize the dynamic island, then I'll really have to like be able to reach up there one-handed because I don't want to use the second hand, just like tab on the island itself. I guess in a way I could. I'm just being lazy here. Alright, let's go ahead and set up this phone and see how fast I can get eSIM to work. So the carrier I use is T-Mobile, and I have the iPhone without the SIM, so I need to set up the eSIM. Let's go ahead and transfer from another phone, which is mine right here. Transfer your SIM to this phone. Alrighty, so once I transfer, my number will stop working on the other phone. This is exciting. Okay, let's give it a try. There we go. While it's trying to activate my iPhone 14 Pro with eSIM, let's talk about eSIM itself. Essentially, you don't have a SIM card tray anymore. And I think that's great. That's really awesome. And I believe it'll work well maybe in the near future, but probably not at this moment because I have 3 prepaid SIM cards from different countries that I use. So I'll top them off whenever I visit a country at the airport so I can use the local carrier because usually they have better services. However, I do hope eSIM become popular, and because Apple is pushing out eSIM, hopefully more and more countries and carriers will start having this function. Alright, that was fast. Seems like it only took like 3 minutes? Not even 3 minutes. That was quick. Now, another new function that the iPhone 14 Pro has is the always on display. Essentially what's happening is that the iPhone 14 Pro will keep running 1 Hz on the display and keep the minimal things that you have to see, like the clock, but it'll dim out the camera shortcut and the flashlight shortcut. I think it's useful and interesting and looks kind of cool actually. However, after looking at it for a couple of times, I feel like there's a notification like on my phone, but there's actually no notifications. I'm just not paranoid, but I'm just so used to when my phone lights up and okay, there's probably notifications. I'm just so used to the old way of using it. So as of now, I'll probably turn it off because it seems like it's gonna drain batteries too on my phone. And honestly, I don't really need to see the dimmed version of the wallpaper and the time all the time. Personally, I'm very interested and excited to test out the new camera in the iPhone 14 Pro. But other than that, I feel like if you're coming from the 12 or even the 13, there's really no reason to upgrade to the 14 this year. The changes and the upgrades are just not that drastic to the point where I think it's justified to upgrade to the 14. But if you're coming from the iPhone 10 or 11, you will definitely notice the upgrade, especially in camera, even in ProMotion display. Other than that, with iOS 16, your old phone will feel just like a new one with all the new functions on there. What do you guys think? Do you think it's worth upgrading to the iPhone 14 this year? Let me know in the comment section down below. Until then, thank you so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next one.